Donald from D&D Defense, back with another video. Today's video, I'm going to demonstrate how to do a basic cross choke from guard. You can also do this from a mount position as well. It is perfectly viable in a self-defense scenario. I always disclaimer that this is the worst case scenario. You want to avoid a self-defense encounter altogether, but if you ever get there and you're defending yourself, particularly on the ground, this is an option. That being said, the thing with chokes is that they occupy your hands, and if your hands are occupied, then that means they're not doing the job of protecting your head. Particularly when you're on the ground, you have to assume the worst case scenarios, and some of those worst case scenarios are the person has a weapon of some sort, whether it be a gun, a knife, or some sort of bludgeoning, or he has friends. And so if you're doing this cross choke and the person has friends, that means your hands are occupied. So if somebody tries to soccer kick you, you're not going to be able to defend against it. So I don't necessarily recommend doing this in a self-defense scenario, but then again, it's all situational, because if this is in the case of a situation that I encountered in my life, I've been a victim of multiple different crimes perpetrated against me, particularly attempted robberies. And in one case, it was just a singular person. So in that tussle, I potentially could have put a cross choke or a rear naked choke on the person. But in other scenarios where I was jumped, that may not have been as viable as of an option. And so I say these kind of with a grain of salt, that every technique that one learns in martial arts is only applicable really in very specific situations. You never should map or plan like, okay, this is what I'm going to do in a self-defense scenario. Yes, it's good to visualize certain scenarios in which you might be in where you would have to respond, but never say and get kind of tunnel vision on, yes, I'm going to do this if I ever find myself in a self-defense scenario. Because the thing about self-defense is it's not like a competitive sport where the rules are set and you know that you're only facing one competitor. The streets are a lot different. It can start off as one and end with 5 or 6, and there is no rules, and so those dynamics can change, and they can change fast. And so while yes, you should have a plan in place to defend yourself, just remember that plan shouldn't keep you like a deer in headlights, because you've gotten tunnel vision in the sense that, hey, I want to perform said technique, whether it be a kick, a punch, a choke, whatever it may be. So without more delay, I'm going to demonstrate the cross choke from mount. And I'm going to move the dummy in several different positions so that you're able to see to the best of my ability. So first, understanding what a mount is. Me being on top of the person, and it's not just about being on top of the person, it's about being on their hips, which once again, in a self-defense scenario, I wouldn't want to be here, because most people, if not all people, they're going to be squirming, they're going to be bucking, and if you're on their hips, that gives them all the leverage to bump you up and knock you off. And if they're strong enough, you're going to go flying. And so I'm not a big fan of mount at least competitively speaking. There are options that you can use self-defense wise. If I get here, I can drop elbows, spike elbows, you know, and this is why I say, like, this self-defense and competitive is different. Some of those things you can't do, even in MMA. You can't do spike elbows. You can't hit at the top of the head with a spike elbow. If I'm defending myself, I'm hitting you with an array of different things. I'm slamming your head on the concrete. I'm doing whatever I have to survive this encounter. So that being said, with, you know, I kind of deviated a little bit. So if people are wondering what I'm grabbing onto, it's a gi or a gi jacket, and I'll explain why that's important in a minute. But getting into the technique, first you want to open up the collar, okay? And then you want to take whatever side you decide to do the choke, but your first hand should slide into that collar, and essentially your fist should be punching the ground. You should feel your knuckles on the ground. And the bony part of your forearm should be riding in the groove of his neck. So you could kind of already tell how this is gonna go. And then with the other hand, I'm going to slide under that hand, grabbing his collar and doing the same thing, attempting to get to the bottom of getting to the ground. And once I've gotten as deep as I can in the collar, I flare my elbows out and get the cross choke. So what this would look like if I turn away so you can see what my arms are doing. This is a mount. I'm taking palm in, thumb out, hitting the ground. I almost want to be to the back of his spine. As you can see, my wrist is in the neck area. Now this is a thicker dummy, so naturally it's going to look a little awkward. If this is a regular human being, trust me when I say the neck is going to be a lot smaller and it's going to be a lot easier. Now you can come around and grab the other side and do the choke here, but for simplistic reasons, I'll just keep it like this. Slide underneath, grab the collar, punch your fist down, and see how my elbows are like this? I'm going to sink my weight, which is going to basically put a lot of weight on the trachea, and then as I flare my elbows out, that will cut off the blood supply in the carotid. And if he, in a competitive situation, if he doesn't tap, he's going to go to sleep. In a self-defense scenario, that's ideally what I'm looking for, is to put him to sleep. So showing from the other side now. Again, taking this hand, running it deep. This hand coming across, getting inside the collar, and flaring my elbows out for the choke. And so what this is going to look like, as I turn the dummy back facing you, is when I got my hands here, my elbows flare up as my hands cut through, sort of like scissors. It should feel like you're trying to cut his head off. And so at the most basic level, that is how you do a cross choke. Now, for those who may be viewing this video and saying, well, you know, why do you train in a gi? Or why is your dummy using a gi top? Nobody's walking around in a martial arts gi or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gi or judo gi, whatever it may be. And while that may be true, you have to see beyond what the actual item is. So I live in the Northeast, so in that case, most people during the winter time are going to be wearing jackets. This gi right here simulates that. And so if I could get my hands on somebody's jacket, I can easily do the same thing. So we train in gi because it allows you to defend against somebody during the winter season. And so in the summer, I would remove the jacket and then it would just be a plain dummy. And then we would train with real humans in what's commonly referred to as no gi. No gi is just basically summer training. As you can see, I'm wearing a tank top, so it's less articles of clothing. And so in no gi, you would just have basically shorts or, light pants with, a shirt or a rash guard of some sort, which would simulate the very thing that I'm discussing, which is in the summer, people are going to have less articles of clothing, so you need to be able to control the person without having to grab onto. So that's the reason why we train in gi and no gi. Some people prefer gi, some people prefer no gi. I prefer to do both, mainly because the purposes of what I do are for self-defense. And so I need to be prepared for every season or every region that I may find myself in. You may find yourself in an area where it's a warmer climate and you're not going to have jackets and coats and sweatshirts. But then you might find yourself where it's not a very warm climate and everybody's wearing coats pretty much year round. And so you need to be well versed in every area. And more so for self-defense, because even if a person's carrying a weapon, 9 times out of 10, they want to keep that weapon concealed. Well, how do they do that? They do that with a jacket or some sort of sweatshirt or something of that nature. And so making those observations are super important as well, while still being able to observe the fact that if he's wearing something heavy like that, it gives me something to grab onto, and therefore will allow me to do chokes like this or be able to pull and manipulate his body in such a way that will give me control and better defend myself. So that's why we train in gi and no gi. And so deviated a little bit from the technique, but I think it's important to highlight that, and I think it's important for people to understand. That being said, the cross choke from guard would be done the same way. The only difference is now maybe you've landed on your back and the person has come into you, or maybe you guys fell and they fell into your guard. A lot of things can happen when you're defending yourself, so understanding what position you're in and what you need to do from there is going to be vitally important to your survival. So lifting my dummy up here. So my legs wrapped around the waist of the person is what's commonly referred to as a closed guard. In a self-defense scenario, you never want to be here for the reasons that I stated earlier. If you're on your back and you have a closed guard, you run the risk of getting soccer kicked or stomped. So you want to be able to get up as soon as possible. That being said, we're going to assume that this is a one-on-one confrontation. And if that is the case, you'll do the cross choke the same way. Whether he's low like this or he's up, you sink your hand, palm up, thumb on the outside, come through, your other hand comes through on the other side, grabbing the gi or jacket, whatever it may be that person's wearing, and flare your elbows out for the choke. And so turning around. What this will look like here, and then flaring your elbows out. So, same choke, different position. It's important to know because you're not always gonna be in those ideal positions where you can complete these things, and so you've got to learn how to deal with what you're given, and then be able to use that to your advantage until you can escape it. So these videos are only for informational purposes only. They aren't meant for people to say, oh, I know how to do this, let me go and do it. No, this is merely just to inform and educate the public on some basic fundamental tactics that one could use in a self-defense scenario. And not for nothing, when you're defending yourself, you want to do the less damage to the person, if that makes sense. Yes, there's strikes that can do damage to the person, but if you can choke a person unconscious, there's no risk of a broken jaw. There's no risk of any broken joints or arms. The person goes to sleep, you get up and are able to leave the situation or end the situation with no major injuries other than the person going to sleep. And this is why chokes, whether rear naked chokes or cross chokes, any type of choke that puts the person to sleep is the preferable option, because it doesn't open you up to a lot of legal ramifications. And best believe, if you have to defend yourself, depending on where you're at in the country, you may face some legal ramifications, even if it's with your hands. So I want to best prepare myself for that by doing the least amount of damage necessary in order for me to survive. And if that means I have to slam his head on the pavement a couple of times in order to survive that, then I will. And if that means just choking him out and putting him unconscious, well, then that's also a viable option. So you have to let the situation dictate. So this is not a one-all, do-all, be-all, but it is one of many options that a person has available. Sort of like a toolbox for a mechanic. He doesn't just use a hammer for everything. He has screwdrivers, socket wrenches, sockets, wrenches, and a variety of other tools in his toolbox that he can use. And so that's what this is. So that being said, if you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this, and any other type of content that deals with self-defense. I do a variety of different content, from jiu-jitsu to boxing, Muay Thai, Aikido, and some conditioning workouts as well that translate or cross over into the martial arts. Most of my workouts are to benefit the movements in which I'll be utilizing in my martial arts. So it's not just about conditioning, it's about conditioning my body so that it can move in such a way for me to perform what I need to perform. I also do firearms training and certify people to get their pistol permits in the state of Connecticut. My company name is D&D Defense. You can find me at dnddefense.com. I have a variety of different programs. I also do private lessons, which is unique because it allows me to kind of customize to your needs.